We have lots to discuss here in today's video, including some trade talk around teams like the New York Rangers and the Pittsburgh Penguins. We have some more updates on contract negotiations for guys like Kirill Kaprizov and Connor McDavid. The Bruins are bringing back a longtime player and legendary captain, in my opinion, to work in the organization. We also have some significant injury updates today on a few key players like Barkov and Benn. Big news from the NHL waiver wire. The Wild have introduced a new third jersey for the 25th anniversary season, and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to discuss here in today's video. We'll kick things off with news from the NHL waiver wire. I did do a video earlier on the channel this afternoon when the news was first released, but today was the first eligible day for NHL waivers during training camp, and we had 7 players placed on waivers. I kind of thought it might be more, but some teams decided to hold off making roster cuts. I expect the waiver wire to be very, very busy over the next 3, 4, 5 days especially. You'll see teams start to do larger cuts and really trim down their training camp rosters a lot closer to the maybe not all the way down to their full opening roster for the season, but you're going to see them down to the final handful of cuts, right? So lots of players either being sent back to junior, going back to the minors that don't need waivers, and then many do need waivers. Of course, that's all dependent on their age and level of experience. But today on waivers, the most notable player was Utah Mammoth goaltender Connor Ingram. For those who follow the team closely or those who follow the league closely, probably knew, and we talked about it here on the channel, that this was expected. It was revealed about sometime last week that Connor Ingram and the Utah Mammoth, as the time that training camps were getting ready to open, that they had mutually agreed that it was in the best interest for him to be able to move on and get a fresh start. Obviously, Ingram missed a large chunk of last season being away in the player assistance program, and just got released here just a couple weeks before camp started. So it was good news for him that he was able to be released from the program and everything went well. He's ready to make a comeback, but for whatever reason, because we don't know all the details of what he's dealing with, but both sides thought it was best for him to get a fresh start. So they said they were going to try to accommodate a trade, and if they couldn't find one, they were going to put him on waivers. So here we are. I do expect there being a good chance that he gets picked up. He makes under $2 million. He's 28 years old, decent amount of experience. There's definitely at least a handful of teams, half dozen or so, that I think have questionable goaltending spots. So we will see. There is some speculation. He is like a Western Canadian. I believe he's from Saskatchewan, if I'm not mistaken, that he would like to be closer to home if possible. I heard that as well. So I know a team like the Oilers kind of jumped out as being an obvious option. We'll see if they make that move. I think a team like Edmonton, Calgary, Winnipeg would probably be preferable for him, but we'll see if any of those teams have interest. There's not a lot of goaltending needs there. Calgary might be a potential destination. They could probably use a little bit more competition in that department, but we'll see what happens. Otherwise, on waivers today, the Flyers have Oscar Eklund, and then the Senators made a bunch of roster cuts as well from training camp, sending there's really no surprises on their cuts. All players that were sent to Belleville were players you would expect. The ones that need waivers include Wyatt Bongiovanni, Xavier Bourgault, Cam Crotty, Garrett Pilon, and goaltender Hunter Shepard. So they were all expected to be there, and we'll see if they clear waivers. They will be. So we'll see what happens. As I mentioned as well, a couple of significant injuries came about today. One in Florida Panthers training camp practice. Captain Alexander Barkov was injured during practice, went down, looked to be in considerable discomfort, and ended up getting helped off the ice. It's definitely a lower body injury, definitely in his leg, for sure. It looks like it's almost pretty much it's guaranteed to be a knee injury of some kind here. There is concern, according to some reports out there, that it's not. They'll wait and confirm this. So they're hoping that it's not the worst case, which could be his ACL. There is concern that is the issue. If that is the issue, he will miss significant time. That is a major, could be a major surgery, major recovery. But if it's not, it could be something different. maybe it's a week, maybe it's a couple of weeks. You just don't know. There's so many different ligaments and different structural issues that you can have happen there. But he needed help getting off. It didn't look good. All Paul Maurice said afterward, he was going to get checked out and would see. So obviously they're already going to be without Matthew Tkachuk for the first 3 months or so for the season. Losing Barkov would be another massive asset there that plays a big role for them. If he misses significant time, that's a big blow. So we'll see what happens. Now, another captain went down today. Dallas Stars captain Jamie Benn is going to have surgery to require a collapsed lung. According to general manager Jim Nill, Ben had come off the ice and was kind of complaining that he just wasn't feeling well. Went and got checked out, and they found a problem with his lung, which is quite... I think a little bit scary for sure. Obviously, you kind of need to breathe, kind of a big deal. And he's going to miss a fairly significant period of time. They're saying he will be reevaluated in a month. Somebody who just signed a pretty team-friendly deal to come back. I mean, the Stars are a pretty deep team. They have lots of depth. So I would imagine with where he's at in his career and a role he plays, they'll definitely miss him. Not quite as significant as a loss as it is Barkov to his team, but in some situations, like the Benn injury is a little bit more unique and definitely very concerning for sure. So he'll be out 4 weeks minimum, and we'll see from there. The Edmonton Oilers are going to be without Vasily Podkolzin for a little bit here. Obviously, he's had a pretty good training camp so far and just signed a new contract extension the other day. But unfortunately, he had a family tragedy happen. His father passed away tragically and suddenly. So I don't know. I assume there has to have been an accident of some sort. We don't really know the full details. Not that it really matters too much anyway. So Vasily Podkolzin's headed back to Russia to be with his family for right now. No clear answer exactly, of course, how many days he'll be gone. So our thoughts are with him. Obviously, it's never easy losing a parent, especially when it happens in that kind of method. So, our thoughts are with him, and hopefully when he comes back, he'll be able to focus and keep his game heading in the right direction, because he's kind of evolving into being a pretty important player for them. The Boston Bruins today announced a longtime NHL captain, and I think really a legendary player all around. Zdeno Chara is coming back to the Bruins, this time as an off-ice executive, you could say. Of course, he was one of their best free agent signings that they've had probably ever. Turned into a captain, a longtime captain, a Stanley Cup champion. Just played such a big role, and really not only did all those things I just mentioned, but he, along with Patrice Bergeron, I think were really instrumental in kind of stabilizing and creating the culture around that team for so many years. It's kind of just keeps getting passed along to the next wave here. Went from Chara and Bergeron down to Marchand. Now we're looking at Pasternak and McAvoy, and they've had a really good team culture there for a long, long time. So he played a huge role in that. So he's going back to the Bruins as what they're calling a hockey operations advisor and mentor. His responsibilities are going to include building relationships, strengthening relationships as well between players and coaches, attending practices and home games, providing off-ice development support to the defensemen in the organization. So he'll do basically a variety of things. I suspect that Chara's probably going to be kind of feeling things out to get a better idea of what he might want to do more long-term. So this is a kind of a role that they've made for him, and gives him an opportunity kind of to touch on a variety of things. So nice to see him back in the mix. Definitely never a bad move to bring him in. A terrific person and great guy for the team for sure. The Minnesota Wild today also revealed that they have some new jerseys coming out for their 25th anniversary jerseys. I'm not sure. I didn't catch the exact number of games they're planning to wear these for, but these jerseys are obviously paying homage to their inaugural season way back. So I kind of don't mind these. I like the color scheme myself. But again, I will show you a couple of pictures here. Let me know what you think. If you're a Wild fan, is this something you would purchase? Obviously, I'd like to know your thoughts on these new Minnesota Wild third jerseys. Seems to be a trend with a lot of teams coming out with an alternate jersey here in the last little while leading into the beginning part of the NHL season. Now, as I mentioned, we got a variety of things to take a look at here in the rumor mill. This is around contracts, trades, etc. We'll start with the Oilers and McDavid. Elliot Friedman's got a new podcast episode out today. Talks a bit about the McDavid contract situation, and he still says that he's heard that there's still some that still have a fair bit of optimism and hope that this gets done before the season starts. A lot of people have the opinion that it's not going to and will likely drag on a lot longer, but he also says that, and obviously a lot of us thought back in the summertime that McDavid's contract was going to be at least $16 million with an AAV. He says he doesn't think that's going to be the case, that it's going to be lower. Sounds like it might come in lower, closer to what Draisaitl's making. Like I've said before, I honestly wonder, and I do think that there could be something to it, wondering about part of the holdup here might be pressure from the league. Obviously, the teams would like to see his number be lower, and the union and the players would like to see his number be higher, right? Obviously, there's not going to be... They can't openly say these things, but I'm sure, you're looking at Minnesota's GM, you're looking at, all these other GMs that need to sign players, be like, okay, well, if McDavid takes less and he takes, say, $15 million, well, then my guy's not going to get more than McDavid. He's the best player in the world. I can negotiate him down saying, well, McDavid took 15, you're only getting 13 or 14 or whatever it may be. Meanwhile, you get the players in the union hoping he takes the max bag that he can get so that they can push everybody's salaries up, right? Because you get two very different ends of the business spectrum here and to see where things are going. So I do think there's a bit of a push and pull there that could be having an effect here. But if Elliott's comments here are accurate and he takes a bit of a hometown discount and takes under $16 million and takes closer to what Leon's getting, that could be a huge help for the Oilers to make sure they can put together the strongest team possible around him over the next few years as the cap goes up. So that'd be great news. The Oilers are also working on a contract extension for defenseman Jake Walman, and it sounds like they are getting close. It's expected to be a longer-term deal, likely in the 6 to 7 year range. Now, speaking of contract extensions, Elliott also touched base on the Toronto Maple Leafs and goaltender Anthony Stolarz. Thinks that the AAV they're looking at is probably going to be around the $4 to $4.5 million range, unless they go over 5 years. But he doesn't think that that's something they're looking at. I would suspect the Leafs wouldn't be comfortable with that. Stolarz might be looking for term here. I do wonder what his agent's asking for, because clearly Stolarz is, he dealt with so many injuries early in his career that he's kind of a late bloomer in a sense that it took him a long time, well into his 20s to get to the point where he was able to stay healthy, play more, and kind of build up his value to get a better contract. So even now, he's on a bit of a bargain contract. He's been more of a backup up until this year, but he's earned the right to have a chance to play more and to start more, and he did that his first year in Toronto. Up until last year, he was, basically a backup goaltender. But that's usually how it goes, right? You work your way into being a reliable backup to a chance to be a starter or in more of a tandem, which is kind of what the plan was last year between him and Joseph Woll. Obviously, they both had times they were out, so it kind of, get challenging to kind of probably didn't end up playing and kind of mixing up the workload the way they expected to, but it worked out. They both played relatively well. They had a good season and are a good tandem overall if they can both be there. Now, with Joseph Woll being out for we don't know how long on a leave of absence from the team, that could impact things a little bit here too. But obviously, Stolarz is looking for long term. If he wants 4 or 5 years, I honestly wonder, would the Leafs go there? They have Woll signed for a couple more years. Stolarz is, a little older than Woll, so with the injury history and the age, do they want to go that long? I don't know, right? That's a tough question, but they're certainly grinding away. I would think for the AAV that Elliott's talking about, $4 to $4.5 million, that they're probably looking at around a 3-year deal. That would be my guess, but we'll see where that one goes. Another contract that could be coming, according to Chris Johnson of the Athletic and TSN. Carter Hart, of course, is one of the names, along with Michael McLeod for that matter, getting a lot of attention amongst those 5 players from the 2018 World Junior team that were recently acquitted of charges. They are now eligible to return to the NHL in December, and they can sign contracts in October. Now, from what we've heard, it doesn't sound like there's really much of any interest in Alex Formenton, and it sounds like there's very little to mild interest in guys like Cal Foote or Dylan Dubé. I'm not saying they won't get signed, but from what we're hearing, it just doesn't sound like there's a lot of interest. But McLeod and Hart are getting more interest. I mean, Hart was probably had the strongest career out of the 5 at the time when all this went down, and McLeod was kind of viewed upon as being a good two-way centerman. Didn't put up a lot of offense, but his game was just, I think, starting to kind of trend that way a little bit. But the last year he played with the Devils, his offensive numbers weren't very great. But I also wonder some of these guys too, like they kind of probably all were playing with a lot on their minds, because I'm sure they probably knew for a few months leading into the charges being laid what was likely coming as this investigation was proceeding. So right now it sounds like the Vegas Golden Knights are the front runner to sign goaltender Carter Hart. It was believed to be between Vegas and Carolina. But this obviously won't be official for a little bit until we get into October and he can officially sign. But with the backup goaltending spot in Vegas being a little bit open, you could say, and with Aiden Hill having some injuries as of late and a little bit of inconsistencies at time. I mean, he does have he's got some term on his contract, so definitely somebody that can still be a big part of their team, but maybe they can have more of a 1A 1B scenario with him and Hart. It's hard to say, but yeah. Now the thing that I find interesting is we don't really know what kind of money these guys are going to be able to command. But Carter Hart to sign in Vegas, like the whole Alex Pietrangelo situation is kind of confusing, right? So like we know that they can get full cap relief of his contract if he's not going to play all year and he's not expected to return. And that's what Kelly McCrimmon led everybody to believe in the offseason when he had a media conference talking about Pietrangelo's future and that he's likely never going to play in the NHL again. But then he himself recently conducted an interview, and Pietrangelo would not rule out not only not coming back, but he wouldn't rule out coming back this year. So if they can't even get full cap relief on Pietrangelo's contract, how are they going to sign another player? They're already well over the cap, and the only way they're even going to be compliant is if Pietrangelo's full contract was LTIR eligible. So I'm not sure how they're going to navigate this. Maybe we'll see them make a cost-cutting trade, but because it wasn't believed that Hart was going to sign for like league minimum or something really cheap. It was believed that he was going to be able to command, probably at least something comparable to like a bridge contract. So we'll see here what happens, but it sounds like Hart's going to Vegas. I'm just curious to see how they're going to figure that out. And I would suspect, like I said, that we might see some sort of cost-cutting move to free up some money to make that happen. Now, Elliot Friedman also talked about the Rangers today, talking about Artemi Panarin. Now, we know he's entering the final year of his deal. There's some speculation about his future as well. He's had a great run with the Rangers, a really terrific free agent signing for them. But, he wonders what the future holds there. And he says that he believes that the Rangers went to Panarin in the offseason and talked to him about his contract extension and basically said to him, like, we need you to take less. And trying to see if he would do like maybe a short extension, 2 or 3 years, kind of like what we saw with Anze Kopitar in Los Angeles. Kopitar, of course, was coming off a more lucrative contract. And, obviously he signed for a cheaper deal. So, he kind of helped the team out a little bit, trying to be as competitive as possible his last couple of years. And they were kind of trying to pitch Panarin on doing the same thing. We don't really know where that went. Elliot's not really sure where that stands. But, he's either going to go for it or maybe, if he's offended by that or something, we don't know how he feels about it. So it's hard to say. But obviously, that's where kind of things stand with a Panarin potential extension. It looks like they want to keep him. But if he's not willing to sign for a good bargain contract, give them a little bit of a break after being highly paid for a long-term free agent deal, that he we'll see if he wants to stick around for that or not. Now, the latest on Kirill Kaprizov as well. Of course, his contract has been interesting. We heard before the owner and Bill Guerin both come out and say they were going to, offer him the moon basically, and that it wouldn't be a problem getting him signed. And then they come out and offer him the richest NHL contract we've ever seen, and he rejects it. Now, according to reports from Michael Russo, who covers the team for The Athletic, apparently Craig Leopold, as the owner of the team, always usually does during the preseason or exhibition season, does one media availability to speak with reporters. And he did that today, but he would not address the Kaprizov contract. He would not talk about it at all. The only quote they got from him saying that talking about the Kaprizov situation would be nothing to gain and everything to lose, which I found very interesting. At one point he was saying, like I said, we're gonna offer him so much money, it's not gonna be an issue. We don't mind making him be the highest paid winger. We don't mind making him be the highest paid player. We really value him, want him to stay, yada yada yada. And here we are. Now we won't talk about it at all. So I can understand with the rejection that it might make things complicated. But then you hear the comments from Friedman, not today in today's podcast, but just the other day. He said he wondered if there was tampering going on with Kaprizov. He says he wouldn't be able to prove it, of course. But, like I said, his original thought was that if Kaprizov is rejecting this kind of money, they must think they can get more somewhere else, right? Like, if you really like being in Minnesota and you really want to stay and you really want it to work out, and they come to you with the richest contract in NHL history, you think that would be a slam dunk deal. And it's not. So either you don't want to be there, or you think another team is willing to give you more, so you kind of want Minnesota to match. Now, a couple of reporters said they don't think Minnesota has the ambition to increase that offer anymore. It's already the richest deal ever. So it's kind of interesting now that the owner won't even talk about it. I do wonder if they're, in trouble of possibly losing him. That would be such a bad blow for that team, and I hope for their sake it doesn't happen. But interesting nonetheless. Now, the other thing I want to touch on quickly too, Dave Pagnotta on a radio hit today talking about some trade talk around the Pittsburgh Penguins. We know there's lots of players in Pittsburgh that are available for trade, including the usual veterans like Carlson and Rust and Raquel. A lot of people wonder about the future of Malkin and Crosby. We don't really have anything new on that today, and I don't think we will. We're not really going to know for some time what possibly could go down with those two legendary Penguin veterans. But Pagnotta made a point to mention that it's not just the usual top names that are available for the Pittsburgh Penguins. He also mentions that a veteran bottom six center like Noel Acciari is definitely available. Defenseman Ryan Graves is definitely available. And like I said, you throw in Rust, Raquel, Carlson, the future of Malkin and Crosby up in the air. There's not much on this roster that's not available for the right price, besides a few, promising young players that they would like to build around. So ultimately, they're pretty much anybody with experience is for sale. Like, they also have some injuries going into the season as well, so we'll see. But that's kind of unfortunate. But I don't think the Penguins are going to be an overly great team this year, and I do think that there's a good chance we could see an aggressive sell-off early. But we'll see where that goes. Let me know your thoughts on all of today's news and rumors in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.